I think every kid is afraid of the dark. Or at least I was. By the time I was 7, I would lay in my aunt and uncle's house and I would stare in front of me and I would see demons, you know? Sort of monsters trickling on the hall, working their way up to get me. Clearly. Because all demons want a 7-year-old boy who still pees the bed. It wasn't until I would turn on the light that I would realize there aren't demons. They didn't exist. Just in my mind did they conjure, only did my mind could create such horrific images of beasts and goblins to come gobble me up. As I said, I used to live with my aunt and uncle. Through reasons of abuse in my original house, I was selected to move in my aunt and uncle's. But as a kid, with my fancy imagination led to a passion of religious belief. It was the belief of things that you cannot see that drove me. I had led my lifestyle by a book that was about 2,000 years old. Every day I would ruin relationships because of quick judgments I had learned from this book that I had read and internalized in my heart. When I was with my aunt and uncle, we lived in a house that were 2 stories tall. It was slight brick, slight gray paint of sheeted walls along the sides, 2 pine trees in the backyard, and 1 in the front. Like billboards, they would scan the skies. I say this because it was the interior of the house that was quite ironic, with homes festered as a place like home. And home is where the heart is, and love, joy, and peace plastered on each and every wall. It was when you stepped in, did you feel a little bit claustrophobic? It was deep religious belief that I believe almost conjured sort of a way of thinking. You see, because it was a cornerstone church in Liberty Lake, Washington, that sort of drove this hard passion. When the preacher would scream, you would pray louder. If the preacher would run, you would run faster. And if God called you, you would do more. You see, because I, as a kid, was built as an instrument for God. But as I aged, so did my thoughts. Questions poured in. Like, why should I follow a book that was written 2,000 years old? Why am I following a path that was pre-written for me by people I didn't know? Why am I casting judgments to people who I've never met because of their beliefs? It's questions like these that posed conflict. You see, because my aunt and uncle, not knowing the answers, just knew that these questions were coming from the devil. It was trying to trick somebody out of faith. It was questions that maybe they'd start to think back on their own faith and realize that it was built on the thin air that lied between us. That's when it led to a Thursday afternoon of arguments and fights, of disagreement and disapproval, of disgust and disarray. I was kicked out. As I packed my stuff into my uncle's old Chevy truck, I looked back at the house one more time. I looked back in my room's window that was casting on me like a shadow of memory. And I would remember that all I had to do was turn on the light. You see, because the house that I was moving to was something the most terrifying. There might be demons that I might make in my mind, but these demons that I was going to live with were true. You see, I lived in a church in which these people were the worst amount of people. The devil resided with them as they drank coffee in the early morning, spitting on Christians and roasting babies that they would eat. Ridiculous, no? I believe that. The whole right there, like the raindrops that I would watch from that cloudy day, the sweat would drip down my brow as I would think about how I was gonna die. You see, it was hot in the car. It was a heater that was turned on too much that I reached for just to adjust it, because it seemed like the only hell I was in that crowdy, stuffed car with my uncle. And he slapped my hand and he said, "Don't touch the car, because the house that you're going to, you can touch whatever you want." I only heard headlines of the house that I was going to. You see, the two devils that resided in this house were lesbians. That's it. That's what I was afraid of. So when I walked through the front door and saw how a homey place with well-decorated furniture and signs that weren't bullshit, I reflected. Something's not right. Maybe I just need to peek a little bit darker, a little bit deeper into this darkness. My uncle didn't stay for long. He didn't want the devil to catch him. Through quick conversation, I learned that this was a normal household. It was one filled with love, and if there was a God, I think it would be in those two people. It was when I walked into the kitchen and saw a magnet that said, "Don't worry, we're just practicing witchcraft." The irony and hilarity through this brought me eventually to my bed late at night, in which I stared at the wall and saw nothing. Because sometimes the demons that you think are there don't exist. You see, the only demons that exist are the ones that you make. Thank you.